You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
We're taking your questions, and this week we have some fantastic ones. So for today and tomorrow, I'm going to be answering at least 6 of the questions that we've gotten from our community over the week. They range from anything from nutrition to diet to longevity to Alzheimer's questions this week to exercise to weight loss. So really some great questions. And again, you can get your own question answered on the Cabral Concept on our HouseCall editions on every Saturday and Sunday by simply going to stephencabral.com/Ask Cabral. All right, let's get into our first question today. First question is from Jenny. Jenny is asking, with my IBS, which IBS stands for Irritable Bowel Syndrome, with my IBS, is it okay to make a smoothie with fruit and vegetables, or will the fiber hurt my stomach? So, great question. This one actually came in over Instagram on one of our posts. It's always best to try to email us at the website so we don't miss it. But of course, you're able to ask those questions anywhere, and I will do my best to personally answer them for you. So let's go over this. So irritable bowel syndrome can be inflammation of the intestines caused by many different reasons. Irritable bowel syndrome is not a disease. It's not anything. It's a random term given to someone that literally their bowels are irritable. Like, that's really all it is. I hate when we give diseases names because it makes us say, oh, I have IBS. I have this disease. Well, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, it means inflammation. And you have inflammation, you have irritability of the intestines. Well, what do you have it from? Like, you have to start to get to those deeper levels. Is it small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Is it candida overgrowth? Is it a Clostridium-based bacteria that's living down there? Is it parasites? Is it just improper food combinations? Is it too much stress? Improper probiotics or flora? It's called gut dysbiosis. So, I mean, literally, my recommendation is that you run an organic acids test. That's what I recommend. They can really get to the bottom of it if it's bacterial overgrowth or what's going on. But let's answer Jenny's question. So, it's the fiber in fruits and vegetables that can sometimes make it more challenging or actually increase bowel motility, which means it can give loose stool or diarrhea to someone with IBS. Here's the thing. You can't stay away from fruits and vegetables. Like, you just can't not eat them. For a period of time, you might have to go lighter on them. And my recommendation is this, is it would be great if you could juice your vegetables and actually start to blend some of your fruits in the smoothie. So by juicing your vegetables, what you do is you get away from like the long, stringy ones. So like celery is a great vegetable, right? It helps increase our own natural sodium and own natural, it's basically an electrolyte and helps strengthen our digestive system in the first place. But celery is very stringy. That's going to be a harder one to break down with all of its insoluble fiber. But you could certainly juice the celery, and that could help out a lot as well. The other thing I would say is this, is that again, stay to the vegetables and the fruits that are easier to just kind of, I use the fork test to kind of smush it and break it down, and then it kind of completely dissipates. So with berries, obviously that's going to be a lot more challenging, right? Because of the skins. That's why they're also so beneficial for you, is those skins contain the antioxidants, but that's also going to be the most challenging for you. But a banana, mangoes, papaya, those types of things, those are softer. You're going to be able to kind of squish them and the juice is going to come right out. So what I would say is this, Jenny, when you're experimenting, only use really one fruit or maybe 2 at a time. That's it. Do those work for you? Yes or no? Okay, keep them on your safe list. And then you'll try a different smoothie. Maybe you'll keep one of those safe fruits like a banana, and you'll then try a blueberries with it and say, okay, does that work? Yes or no? But only change one variable at a time. That's always my big thing, is like I give people 21-day programs. And on that 21-day program, I say, here's our control. It's going to be kind of this small little group of foods and all these different types of things, and you're going to feel better. And once you feel better, okay, that's your control. Now we add in one variable and we say, does this make us healthier, or does it hurt our body? Meaning, like, do you have symptoms from it, or is it neutral? And if it makes you feel better or it's neutral over those 3 days, we keep it, and then we move on to the next one. If it makes you feel worse, we get rid of it. So, Jenny, sometimes these things really do take a little bit of experimentation. I'm just worried that you are not getting to the root cause of what's causing your IBS in the first place. So For now, go easy on your digestive system. Use easier to digest fruits and vegetables. Juice your vegetables if you'd like to take away some of that hard, stringy fiber. And then definitely stay away from those like flax seeds, things like that, just for now that you're putting in those smoothies if you do decide to put them in there. All right, Bronson is up next. Bronson is asking, is it good to sweat a lot when working out? So I've gotten this question a few times now. So sweating a lot while you work out, it's something called hyperhidrosis. So with this specific condition, people have a tendency to sweat more from their hands and their feet naturally, and then, of course, more through the armpits. Now, that's only affects about 3 or 4% of the population. And again, it doesn't come out of nowhere. Like, there's still a reason why that happens. And all right, here's the thing. Is it okay to sweat or not? Let's answer your question first, then let's go into what it could be. So it's okay to sweat during your workout, and you should. It just should be appropriate for your level of work. Like literally, if you're leaving a pile of sweat on the ground, that is too much. You're over sweating. And if you're losing really more than 2% of your body weight, so if you weigh yourself before the workout and you weigh 200 pounds, and at the end of the workout you've lost 5 pounds, well, you've lost more than 2% of your body weight, because 2% of 200 is 4 pounds. Just 1% of 200 is 2 pounds. And so we just double that, quick math, and that's 4. So what happens is you're just losing too much water weight. You're becoming dehydrated. And then, of course, you'll need to rehydrate after the workout, not with just water, but with something with a little bit of maybe a pinch of sea salt and a little squeeze of lemon, some electrolytes, or of course you could do a fruit smoothie as well. So you'll need to rehydrate. It's not always just a 16 ounces for every 1 pound loss. That's a pretty standard one to look at, but it can sometimes just be getting more electrolytes in the body, as well. All right, so that's the answer. You're over sweating if you're literally leaving a pile of sweat on the ground and your whole body is soaked. That's too much sweat. Now, an appropriate amount of sweat would be for appropriate amount of exercise. Meaning, like if you're doing really hard intervals, you're going to be sweating, your body's going to be beating up, it's going to be, kind of maybe soaking through a little bit of your shirt. That is normal, but not soaking through your shirt and then dripping on the floor. The other thing is, we have to keep in mind, why would someone, like if you're sweating outside of your workouts too, it's a very good sign that you might have elevated levels of cortisol and potentially elevated levels of adrenaline or norepinephrine. This is a sign of what's called sympathetic nervous system stress, and it is not a good thing in terms of cardiovascular disease or high blood pressure, strokes, anything like that. If that's you, I would recommend running a saliva test called a 24-hour diurnal cortisol test, or we just call it a adrenal stress test or adrenal hormone test. And that allows you to see if you do have those elevated levels of cortisol, because we certainly don't want that. That would be a sign of something deeper that's causing you to sweat that much. So Bronson, hopefully that answers your question. All right, Shen is up next. Shen is asking, I'm looking at buying a piece of cardio equipment for my home. Should I get a treadmill or a bike? So great question. My answer to that is, which one do you think you're going to use the most? So that's my thing, is like, if you love walking on a treadmill or doing sprints on a treadmill, but you've heard that using a bike is better because it's less wear and tear in the joints, you're right. But if you hate riding a bike and you're never going to use it and it's going to become a clothes hanger in your house, then don't buy the bike. But if we're looking at just walking, I have no problem with someone doing that on a treadmill. Doing some interval-based sprints, no problem on doing that on a treadmill. I like people to get their 10,000 steps per day. There's no doubt about that. But I don't want to see someone doing just a lot of excess running on a treadmill when it's a little bit unnatural. There's a little bit more pounding on the body. It's pulling you along, which again is that unnatural part of it. A lot of people hold on when they use a treadmill, which I don't like at all. That's not natural. You should be swinging your arms contralaterally, which just means your right arm swings forward as your left leg goes forward, and your left leg goes forward, and your right arm goes forward. So that's a natural movement of the body that should be taking place. And I don't want to see people running on a treadmill for an hour. That's just going to be too much wear and tear on the body. It's too catabolic. It's not great for your body in the long run, causes too much stress. Okay, I love the upright bike. I think you can get a lot of great biomechanical work done on that. I want to make sure that you're getting a good bike with a proper seat, so there's not causing any impingement in the hips, and that you are making sure that you're just stretching your hip flexors and your hamstrings and your IT bands after the workout. And you can do some foam rolling as well, so because you kind of stay in a shortened position when you're on a bike as well. But Shen, my recommendation is this, is that you get a piece of cardio equipment that you see yourself using the most. And that's really my big thing. Now, if you're just starting from scratch, do the upright bike. Don't do the recumbent bike where you're kind of seated back and your back's against a pad. I don't like those ones. It's improper biomechanical alignment. You're actually pushing against your back as you're pedaling. Not a huge fan of that at all. Buy the upright bike. It's also less expensive, right? So the upright bike might cost you a couple $100. Of course, you can spend a couple $1,000 for a really nice one. Whereas the minimum amount you could spend on a treadmill is really $1,000. Anything less than that, it's going to break most likely too often. It's going to be a little bit more flimsy. There's not going to be any shock absorption for you. So there can be a difference of at least $1,000 from a treadmill to a bike, and that might make your decision pretty easy as well. I'll try to link one up in the show notes for different home bikes that you can use rather than going for maybe the very expensive ones. So again, that goes for everyone. The best type of exercise is also the exercise that you're willing to do. Thank you again for tuning in to another Cabral House Call.
Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.